Have you ever met someone who seems to have an opinion about everyone and everything? The way someone dresses, the car they drive, the job they have, the way they parent their kids, even the food they order at a restaurant, nothing escapes their critique. These people don't just notice differences, they weaponize them. They turn every observation into a judgment, every flaw into proof of someone else's inferiority. And the strangest part? The harsher they judge others, the more fragile they often seem on the inside. Today we're going deep into the hidden psychology of chronic judgers. Why do some people feel compelled to constantly evaluate and criticize everyone around them? What's really going on beneath the surface? And most importantly, how does this habit affect both protect and destroy them at the same time? By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what drives judgmental behavior, the 5 core psychological mechanisms behind it, and what it really says when someone can't stop judging others. Let's begin. First, we need to separate judgment from discernment. Discernment is healthy boundaries, preferences, and values. It's quiet, internal, and usually kind. Judgment, on the other hand, is loud, external, and often cruel. It's less about understanding and more about establishing superiority. So why do some people default to judgment as their primary way of interacting with the world? Reason number 1: projection of the disowned self. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. The traits we hate, fear, or feel ashamed of don't disappear, they get pushed into the unconscious. But the psyche hates imbalance. So what does it do? It projects those unwanted parts onto other people. When a chronically judgmental person sees laziness, incompetence, selfishness, or arrogance in others, very often they're looking at a mirror they refuse to face. A classic example: the person who constantly calls others fake is usually terrified that their own authenticity is fragile or non-existent. The one obsessed with how attention-seeking everyone is may secretly crave attention but feels too ashamed to admit it. Judgment becomes a defense mechanism. If I can spot it in you first and condemn it loudly enough, then everyone, including myself, will believe it doesn't live in me. This is why judgmental people rarely self-reflect. Self-reflection would force them to reclaim the very traits they've spent years disowning. Reason number 2: fragile self-esteem and the superiority complex. People with rock-solid self-worth don't need to put others down to feel okay about themselves. But when self-esteem is fragile, built on external validation, achievement, or comparison, the ego becomes starving for evidence that it's better than. Judgment is the fastest, cheapest way to manufacture superiority. Think about it. If I can convince myself that you're irresponsible, shallow, or morally inferior, then by default, I must be responsible, deep, and morally superior, even if I have zero evidence of that in my own life. This is why you'll often see judgmental people obsessed with status symbols, appearances, and social hierarchies. They need constant proof that they're on the right side of every divide: rich versus poor, educated versus uneducated, fit versus unfit, spiritual versus materialistic. The tragedy: this strategy never works long-term. Because fragile self-esteem can't be healed by comparison, it can only be temporarily soothed. So the judger has to keep finding new targets. It becomes an addiction. Reason number 3: insecure attachment and fear of vulnerability. Many chronic judgers grew up in environments where love felt conditional. Maybe they had a parent who only gave approval when they were perfect. Maybe they were compared constantly to siblings or neighbors. Maybe mistakes were met with shame instead of support. In those environments, being better than others became a survival strategy. If I can prove I'm smarter, prettier, more disciplined, more morally pure, then maybe I'll finally be safe from rejection. As adults, they carry that same terror: if I'm not clearly superior, I might be abandoned or humiliated. Judgment, then, isn't really about the other person being judged. It's a primitive alarm system screaming, "Don't get too close, don't see my flaws, let me push you away before you can hurt me." This is why judgmental people often struggle with genuine intimacy. Real closeness requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels life-threatening to someone whose entire identity is built on superiority. Reason number 4: cognitive distortions and black-and-white thinking. Many chronic judgers suffer from rigid thinking patterns. The world, to them, is divided into winners and losers, good and bad, right and wrong, with no gray area. Psychologists call this splitting, a defense mechanism often linked to personality disorders like narcissism or borderline traits, but it exists on a spectrum in many people. When you see the world in absolutes, judgment becomes inevitable. There's no room for context, growth, or humanity. Someone makes one mistake, and in the judger's mind, their entire character is now defined by that mistake. This is why you'll hear phrases like, "They're just a bad person." "She's so fake." "He's lazy." End of story. There's comfort in certainty. Nuance is scary because it requires empathy and self-doubt, two things the chronic judger has very little of. Reason number 5. Social bonding through shared judgment. Humans are tribal. One of the fastest ways to create a sense of us is to create a them. Gossip and judgment have been social glue for thousands of years. When two people bond over criticizing a third person, they experience a hit of dopamine and oxytocin, the same neurochemicals released during laughter or physical touch. For people who struggle to connect in healthier ways, maybe because of low self-worth or social anxiety, judgment becomes their primary tool for belonging. You've seen this in cliques, workplaces, even families. The group defines itself not by what it stands for, but by who it stands against. The dark side. This type of bonding is inherently unstable. Today's ally can become tomorrow's target the moment they show weakness. Now that we understand the mechanisms, let's talk about the hidden cost of living this way. Chronic judgment doesn't just hurt the people being judged, it slowly poisons the judger. First, it creates chronic stress. The brain of a judgmental person is always scanning for threats to their superiority. That state of hypervigilance floods the body with cortisol, leading to anxiety, sleep issues, even physical health problems over time. Second, it blocks personal growth. When you spend your energy cataloging everyone else's flaws, you have none left to examine your own. Judgmental people often remain emotionally stunted, repeating the same patterns for decades. Third, it guarantees loneliness. People can sense when they're being evaluated instead of seen. Even if the judger never says a word, the energy is palpable. Over time, others pull away, confirming the judger's deepest fear, that they're unlovable. And fourth, perhaps most ironically, constant judgment actually lowers self-esteem in the long run. Because deep down, the judger knows their worth built on sand. Every time they need to put someone down to feel up, they're reminded of how fragile their self-image really is. So what happens when someone starts to heal from chronic judgment? The journey usually begins with a painful realization: I've been using judgment to avoid looking at myself. From there, the work involves developing self-compassion, learning to treat your own flaws with the kindness you never received. 2. Reclaiming the shadow, asking, what parts of myself have I been projecting onto others? 3. Practicing curiosity over judgment. When you feel the urge to criticize, pause and ask, what might this person be going through that I can't see? 4. Building identity from the inside out, finding worth in values, growth, and contribution rather than comparison. 5. Surrounding yourself with people who celebrate vulnerability, not perfection. It's not easy. Judgment is a deeply ingrained habit for many. But every time someone chooses empathy over evaluation, they take one step out of the prison they built for themselves. Now, a quick reality check. Not all judgment is bad. We need critical thinking. We need to recognize harmful behavior. We need boundaries. The difference is intent and tone. Healthy discernment says, this behavior doesn't work for me. I'm going to protect my peace. Toxic judgment says, you're a terrible person, and I'm better than you. One creates clarity. The other creates division. So the next time you catch yourself judging someone, or more importantly, the next time someone judging you, remember this: judgment is never really about the target. It's always a confession from the judger. It's them saying, without words, I'm scared. I don't feel safe. I don't feel enough. Please don't look too closely at me. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can take the bait and judge them back, joining them in the cycle. Or you can see the wounded human underneath the sharp tongue, and respond with the compassion they probably never got. Either way, their judgment says nothing about your worth, and everything about their pain. If this video resonated with you, I want you to do one thing today. The next time you feel that familiar itch to judge someone, Pause. Place your hand on your chest. Take one deep breath. And ask yourself quietly, what part of me is hurting right now that I'm trying to avoid? That single question has the power to change everything. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dive psychology content, and let me know in the comments. Have you ever caught yourself being more judgmental than you'd like? What triggered it? I read every comment. See you in the next one.